Unless you have been living under a rock for the last week or so, then you have most certainly at some point heard about the rising tensions between the US and Iran, after the US launched a military airstrike that killed one of their leading generals, Qasem Soleimani. This of course led to an escalation of the current situation going on in the Middle East, and not 1 week later the Iranians actually retaliated, launching their own missiles into neighbouring Iraq, where the US had troops stationed at one of the military air bases. And for the most part, that appeared to be it, the situation over. Iran was talking very tough, posting photos of the White House crumbling in flames on social media, for example, but this reaction was far less worse than what it could have been, and it led to Trump coming out and extending an olive branch, saying that Iran appears to be standing down, effectively taking steps to de-escalate what was happening. Now, by no means am I an expert on the current situation going on in the Middle East, and do not wish to get into the geopolitics of it. However, I do want to look at it in context of the global markets, and most notably Bitcoin and the reaction it has had to those markets. To better try and visualize this, I took this news and actually charted it so we can see what exactly happened. So back here we have the point at which the news broke regarding Soleimani's death. The price swiftly popped up before slowly growing and eventually climaxing at the exact point the Iranians retaliated. The price thereafter pretty much held where it was currently trading and was just looking to see what was going to be happening next. So when Trump actually came out and de-escalated things, then the price actually retraced back down, as it appeared for now the conflict and the tensions and uncertainty was finally over. Of course, around now Bitcoin appears to have stabilised off and is in fact pumping today, which is a nice little surprise. But still, in comparison to where the price was when the initial news broke, Bitcoin is still up more than 10%. Now this of course may be in part due to the upcoming halving, which is estimated to be around May, or it may be down more to the current geopolitical climate, I'm not entirely sure. But just charting the actual news, I think it's pretty undebatable, let's say, that what is happening in the real world is actually having effects on the price of Bitcoin. This is no longer just speculation, and it's leading me to think that these markets really are maturing, and it's taking that step to becoming that digital gold standard, which many of us often talk about. So let's actually compare this to gold, and we actually see that a similar pattern emerged here. Soleimani was killed, price jumped up, and it climaxed when the Iranians retaliated. Of course here, gold did not hold its price nearly as well, and when Trump eventually did come out and de-escalate things, the price fell even further. So gold is just actually trading and stabilised above where it was at the start of this situation a week ago. So actually comparing gold to Bitcoin, it seems that Bitcoin is more of a safe haven asset, or at least it's being treated as such by the current people trading these markets, which nonetheless is quite strange to see, especially since Bitcoin is a relatively new technology in comparison to gold. But in many ways I think this should be expected, as both these assets share that apolitical property, which allows them to be seen as this safe haven for investors. On the other hand, however, when we look at something like the S&P 500, which is the US stock market, over here Soleimani was killed, the price fell, it did not rise, and it eventually culminated in this ultimate low down here when the Iranians retaliated. And finally, when Trump came out the next day, de-escalating the situation, stocks continued to rise all the way back up, making brand new all-time highs. So again, just to clarify, I do believe what we are seeing here is a maturing of the cryptocurrency markets beyond just pure speculation, and that is of course a very good thing, as it shows we are growing and taking the next step forward. Of course, despite this evidence and data, not everybody can be happy, including the person we all very much love to hate, the one, the only, Peter Schiff, who had this absolutely amazing hot take to givers on Twitter, writing, "For those Bitcoin bugs excited about Bitcoin's 4% rally in 2020, think about this. Gold is also up by about the same percentage this year, only with significantly less downside risk. If this is the best rally Bitcoin can muster, how will it ever hit 50k, let alone 1 million? Now, of course, Peter here is a bit preemptive in his assumption, as Bitcoin may have risen 4% by the time he tweeted this, but it in fact at the maximum rose over 20%, and as I pointed out in comparison to gold, is holding its price a hell of a lot better, up more than 10% from a breakout, whereas gold is up, I think now only about 1% from where it was originally trading before all this took off. We should expect no less from Peter, of course. After all, he is the person who had the opportunity to buy Bitcoin in 2011 and did not take it, and has ever since been moaning about how Bitcoin is just absolutely worthless and gold is the best thing to ever grace this earth. But you know what, just to humble Peter and answer his question for him, I actually went and looked up how much gold there is in the world and stumbled across the World Gold Council, which I will leave linked down below. They currently estimate that around 190,000 tons of gold has been mined throughout history. Of course, if we convert this to ounces and times it by the current trading market price of gold, we get a figure of around $9.4 trillion, which is staggeringly huge, but still insignificant when compared to things such as bonds and the debt market. But if we were to take this 9.4 trillion, and let me get my calculator up here, so that's 9 billion, that's 9.4 trillion, and divide it by the total supply of Bitcoin there will ever be, 21 million, we come out with a figure of pretty much $450,000 per Bitcoin if Bitcoin is to match the current value of the entire gold supply in the world. We can of course then divide this by 7,900, which is roughly the current trading price right now for Bitcoin, and we find that in order to do that, Bitcoin has to go up 56 times from where it is now. Now, I don't know about you, Peter, but I think we're beginning to see Bitcoin truly step into its role as digital gold. And if Bitcoin is indeed headed in this direction, then going by these figures, I see a hell of a lot more upside by investing in Bitcoin than I do, say, gold. But you know what? Each to their own. You had your opportunity back in 2011 and have continued to fight it ever since, looking like a complete fool year after year after year. Every time being proven wrong. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think down below. Is Bitcoin maturing and becoming this gold digital standard? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, I will see you next time.